3, 2, 1, cut. Hello everybody, it's me Brady with Borrowed Light Photography again. Today we're going to go through some old film that I learned how to use an SLR on. I'm super excited to show you guys. Let's get into it. So today I wanted to go through, I mentioned in my introductory video that one of my foundational photography classes was back in high school. So we're circling back all the way to 2009, 2010, my junior year of high school. I went to Wasson High School here in Colorado Springs, if you're familiar with the area. That high school is no longer a district school. I was like the second to last graduating class, but one of the few schools that still had a dark room at the time. That was cool. I mean, that was awesome. I wanted to take full advantage of that. They had a black and white film photography class, 35mm, where you learned how to shoot on an SLR, and then also how to develop film, and also how to use a photo enlarger in the darkroom using all the different types of chemicals and everything to develop the pictures and actually make the prints. So that's, I'm just going to share a little bit about my class there. Obviously it's been quite a few years back now, but this was a pivotal moment for me as I was moving from your traditional throwaway cameras and also just cheap digital cameras, which there will be more on some of those first digital cameras that I used, starting to recollect some of the old cameras that I used to have, and I'm going to do a little challenges for myself, but that'll be for later. I'll go into that more later. But for now, I just wanted to share my experience and how this part of my photography journey continued to lead me to a place where now I have my own business. So again, started this class, didn't have my own camera, and I didn't have the ability to go buy my own, but thankfully my dad, he was into photography at some point in his life and had this Canon AE-1 SLR 35mm. This is the exact camera that I used in that class. Super cool camera. My first thoughts were when he handed it to me, he had the bag. I still have the bag with all of the stuff that he would carry around with, same strap, everything like that. I was just super excited. I was like, this is so cool. All the mechanicalness of old film SLRs, 35mm, is just super satisfying, very clicky. And this AE-1 is a great example. I think the only issue I have with it is this little battery door is chipped at the bottom, but otherwise it's in pretty pristine condition. And of course I had no idea how to use it, but we learned, obviously that was the class. I'm not going to say that the teacher was the best at teaching, but thankfully there was another classmate of mine in the room with me, and she already knew how to use a 35mm SLR, and so she was really the one that came to, we kind of became buddies, and she really taught me how to do a lot of the things. The teacher in the book and everything were helpful, but a lot of it was just learning how to set the aperture for what you wanted, and changing the ISO, and just the general functionality. I mean, they're still pretty simple, all things considered. It's manual focus, manual settings for everything. I had to go out and practice, and what's cool is you don't know if it worked until you develop the film. You'll see in some of the images that I lay over this video that there's of course a learning curve and everything, and a lot of the prints that I have now are I didn't store them very well. They're just in this little binder down here. I still have all the negatives from that class. I may have them scanned in. I've thought about getting a scanner so I can scan my own film and just going back through and seeing some of the stuff that I had. I do have a variety of prints that I did make. One of my images even made it to just a little competition that was here in the mall. It was of a squirrel. I didn't get the original print back, but it was like I still have the film, so I'm going to try to find that one and maybe get it scanned in to show everyone. It was in, again, this was just like a high school little competition, but it was pretty cool. I mean, that was my first experience being in something like that with a photo that I took, so that's super cool. And just a little bit more about the camera. Again, it's just a AE-1, and it has a 50mm 1.8 lens on it. Did very well for me. I really enjoyed. This is my first foray into, you know, being able to create bokeh, if you will, and have depth of field where, you know, shooting at wide open at 1.8, probably for all of the images, I have no idea. But based off of the way that the images look, I was probably shooting wide open most of the time, whether I knew it or not. But it gave me that first like tickle of what depth of field is and how it can, you know, dramatically change an image. And then just also made me think about composition a lot more, because I mean, you only get, depending on the roll of film, you can either get 24 or 36 images, and that's it. And again, you don't know if they turn out until after you develop the film. There's something really satisfying about that, but also kind of, you know, dangerous and risky of like, did I get the shot? So you really have to think about your shot a lot more when you're shooting film than, you know, this digital age that we're in, where we can snap and delete or whatever, and end up with thousands of images, and really none of them are composed very well necessarily. So it really helps like sharpen that skill, and it gave me that skill. And it's something that I'm starting to do more of, is taking out, I have a couple of film cameras, and I'll go through my little collection in another video at some point. But you know, it's fun to go out and shoot a roll of film every once in a while. It is getting a little bit expensive to have it developed and everything. Obviously I don't have my own darkroom and develop my own film, and I don't have an enlarger, so I can't make my own prints, but still, just the action of shooting on a 35mm is so satisfying. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of images that I really enjoy, and you know, we'll kind of go through a couple of those. I thought it'd be fun. Yeah, I'll probably scan these in so you can see them a little bit better, but I just thought it'd be fun to look through these. I don't know if I'll even be able to see these for you guys, but like, this is just a wheelbarrow with snow in it, you know, just a satisfying image. And I think this is where I was starting to figure out like the rule of thirds and some of the general rules of photography was in this class. And again, you have to think about that a lot more when you're shooting film, because you don't know. And yes, you can fix some of it in the enlarger and stuff like that to really get the print that you want, but it's not a perfect, you know, thing, and you really have to focus on it a lot. So like this decent rule of third, and like this image, this one's funny. This is my brother, and I framed him within some bushes, and kind of gives some ominous vibes. It's kind of funny. I don't remember taking this picture, but yeah, I think it's kind of cool actually. It's kind of a fun image. And then we were also challenged to do like little, you know, just like still life art, you know, kind of like a painting, if you will, you know, those type of challenges. And I really like this one of this white rose that, again, I don't know where that came from. I don't know, this was, you know, years and years ago, but I really like the image, and I was able to really find my creative juices with, you know, shooting with this camera versus, you know, the point and shoot style. Not to say that you can't get really good images with point and shoot cameras or disposable film cameras, but when you're really focused in on your composition and your depth of field and, you know, the different settings to put together a good image, you end up making better images, which is, you know, the name of the game, I suppose. I really like this one too. Just, again, creative things. It's not perfectly in focus or anything like that, but it's just a shadow of myself taking a picture, and that's cool. Like, those are the things you experiment with, is like what makes a good image and what's fun. And then this one's really cool. I've got some B-roll of this image, and the image itself isn't like anything outstanding. You know, we've got the sun, and this is where I started to learn about flares and different things, and you can see a pentagonal shape in the middle of this one. It, you know, obviously that's the shape of the aperture hole in that lens, so I just think it's a really cool image. Obviously it's not a technically perfect image, but it was exciting for me at the time. I was like, man, this is really cool. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And then I've mentioned before that I like taking pictures of flowers. These aren't necessarily flowers per se, but these are the type of things that just got my creative juices going. You know, when I saw the different textures of vegetation and plants, flowers, trees, I wanted to take a picture. And there's always, like, if you catch the sunset right or something like that, I mean, flowers are just so beautiful, and so is just nature if you catch it at the right time. And if you can see here, like, I let this sit in one of the chemicals too long. It's got these lines where you can kind of see this sat in the chemical like this, and so it puddled in the middle for too long, so it didn't quite develop technically right. But that's all part of the learning process, and it's cool that I know that I made these prints. It wasn't a lab, it wasn't somebody else. I actually physically did the thing to make this image come to life on a piece of paper. And that's just really exciting. And a cool piece of my photography journey was this film class. It also helped me look for lighting patterns because it's black and white, so you're not worried about colors and things like that. This was really a pivotal class for me as I became, more headed on the path of becoming a professional photographer, and also just becoming more of who I am as an artist and the creative eye that I have. And so it's just really cool being able to go back and share some of this film with you guys. I am, again, actively starting to shoot a little bit more with film. I think it keeps me sharp. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive. Is it really more expensive? I don't really know, but hard drives and SD cards are extraordinarily expensive at the moment with everything going on in the world. So, I think a roll of film, I don't know, probably costs $5 or $6 to $10 a roll, depending on what kind of film you get, and then it costs another $9 to get developed, generally, at least at the camera shop here in town that I use. So not that expensive to shoot a roll of film here and there and just hone the skills. So look, there's a couple other film projects that I have done in more recent years, not black and white necessarily, that I'll dive into a little bit more in a future video, just because of the nature of those projects. It wasn't really a project, it was more of street photography, but on a mission trip, and some of those images are just really incredible. I want to spend some time to dive deeper into those and share those experiences with you as well. But otherwise, I mean, this is what I wanted to go through in this video, is just sharing about my film experience, and taking a look at this cool old Canon AE-1 camera and the images that I was able to produce back then. And I'll continue to share new images that I produce with my film collection moving forward as well. There's just I kind of equate it to digital music versus, whether that's a CD or now we're streaming so much music, to like a record. Records have character, they have imperfections, those little crackles and pop. That's cool. That's what film feels like to me. There's always imperfection. Sometimes there's photographers that strictly shoot with expired film because they never know what effect is going to happen until they develop the film. That's super cool. I may in the future do something like that and see how it goes, and just have an exciting little outing to test that out, because that would be pretty fun. Yeah, film is such a cool experience. It's crazy to think that, the folks like you and me, fellow photographers, would shoot weddings. My parents' wedding was on film. That was just how it was. I mean, and to think that you could shoot we just shot a wedding on, just a few days ago, and to think about shooting that whole wedding on film is a crazy thought to me. To not know if I even was able to capture those images would be terrifying, but that's the way it was. So if you have any questions about film, or want to see anything specific out of my collection or anything like that, let me know down in the comments below. Definitely happy to share more about film, 35mm. Again, I'll probably make another video showing you kind of the few other cameras that I have in my collection and everything like that. It's nothing that exciting, but it is pretty cool and it's fun to use them. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, thoughts about these images, again, these were taken when I was in high school, 16 or 17 years old, and super cool to look back into the past at the photographer I was and how it's shaped me to be who I am now. And as always, we're Borrowed Light Photography, borrowing fractions of light to give you memories for the future. Thanks, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget, comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye. Why would I say thanks? Bye. That's ridiculous. What am I doing?